This is Cindy. Welcome to Cindy's Library. And today I am going to be wrapping up all my July reads and talking about them and wrapping up Jane Austen July, which was wonderful. Busy, but wonderful. So here we go. I finished Persuasion. Love this book. And I think a bit about it, about why I love it is I relate a fair amount to Anne Elliot, and I also appreciate her being Austen's oldest heroine. Yet, in spite of that, true love in the end does manage to win out. Oh, Anne's family, though. There are themes also of pride and of persuasion in here. Very interesting. Persuasion, if you haven't read it, is about Anne Elliot, who is, I want to say, 27 as the novel opens. It opens on her family, whose finances are not doing so well. Her father, Sir Walter, is a baronet, and he is a spendthrift. They are living beyond their means, and so he is persuaded to move to Bath with his eldest daughter Elizabeth and her friend Mrs. I want to say Mrs. Croft, but that is not right. Well, her daughter's friend. In the meantime, Anne is asked by her younger sister to go visit them in the neighborhood. And who should rent the place? The Admiral Croft and Mrs. Croft. Childless, which is pointed out to Sir Walter, is ideal for tenants. And Mrs. Croft is the brother of her old flame, Captain Wentworth. 8 years ago they fell in love. He proposed, but Anne, partially by her family, chiefly by Lady Russell, who has acted as her mentor and a mother figure ever since her mother's death, persuaded her not to. To be fair, as bright as Captain, then Commander, I believe, Wentworth's prospects were, he hadn't actually fulfilled any of them yet. 8 years now have passed, and he has fulfilled them all, and he is ready to marry, and he is not ready to look at Anne, or so he thinks. But, of course, visiting his sister and her husband in the neighborhood, they're always thrown together, and, well, we'll just say there's a very happy ending. And thank goodness, because Anne's family, you're familiar with Pride and Prejudice, the Bennet family is a bit ridiculous. Anne's family is truly ridiculous. I am very happy for her to get away from them for the most part. And it has such a romantic letter by Captain Wentworth at the end, if you have read it. But it is so romantic. If you've read Persuasion, then you know what I am talking about. Which is in response to what Anne says here. And she is talking to Captain Harville, who is Captain Wentworth's friend and who Anne ends up meeting. They are arguing about whose affections would last the longest, for reasons. No, I believe you capable of everything great and good in your married lives, believe you equal to every important exertion and to every domestic forbearance, so long as, if I may be allowed the expression, so long as you have an object. I mean, while the woman you love lives and lives for you. All the privilege I claim for my own sex, it is not a very enviable one. You need not covet it. It's that of loving longest when existence or when hope is gone. Oh. And here is Captain Wentworth's letter. You pierce my soul. I am half agony, half hope. Tell me not that I am too late, that such precious feelings are gone forever. I offer myself to you again with a heart even more your own, than when you almost broke it 8 years and a half ago. Dare not to say that man forgets sooner than woman, that his love has an earlier death. I have loved, and I have loved none but you. So yes, I do love Persuasion. I also read What Matters in Jane Austen, 20 Crucial Puzzles Solved. And this has 20 chapters, I believe, on various topics. What do characters call each other? Why is it risky to go to the seaside? Much important, characters never speak in the novels. What do characters say when the heroine is not there? What do characters read? What are the right and wrong ways to propose a marriage? How experimental a novelist is Jane Austen? I found this quite fascinating, and I look forward to going back over it in the future as I reread Jane Austen and consider what this author argues. Each chapter, the author goes over the topic and gives examples from every major Jane Austen novel, even the non-major ones, including the Watsons and Sanditon, maybe even Lady Susan, as they are appropriate and as there are examples. And for most of these, there are examples from all of the novels. So very interesting. Definitely worth a look for Jane Austen readers, I would say. And now I have not finished reading Jane Austen's letters, as you can see. The first one here is where I am. The second one are the notes. As you can see, there are a ton of notes. But I did do my goal, and I read enough letters to say that I read at least one letter for every day in July. And I made good progress. Let's see, I had gone up to letter 16 before the month, and now up to letter 61. So not too shabby, not too shabby. So we'll be slowly continuing this. And I also read What Kitty Did Next. So this takes place, probably starts half a year after the events of Pride and Prejudice. So in Pride and Prejudice, we end with three sisters married. Jane to Mr. Bingley, Elizabeth to Mr. Darcy, Lydia to Mr. Wickham, for good or evil. But Kitty finds herself at home with her parents and with Mary. And, well, to say that Highbury life no longer has much excitement anymore. The regiment has left the town of Meryton as well. I guess I shouldn't say Highbury, that's Emma. But Marytown life doesn't hold much excitement anymore. Now that Lydia's gone and Jane and Emma, or Jane and Elizabeth, and it's just Mary at home, and even the officers have left. Well, can't entirely fault Kitty for thinking that it's a bit boring. And so, of course, when the Bingleys invite her to go with them to London, she is ecstatic and she finds herself loving London life. She finds herself uh, broadening her experiences and her ideas, and she comes to realize some of the issues that there have been with Lydia. Uh, and she starts changing and becomes more than the silly girl that her father thinks she is. And well, to be fair, she mostly was before this experience. So London is wonderful. The Darcys come there too. She forms a great friendship with Georgiana, which is terrific. She takes music lessons from Mr. Adams, which she greatly enjoys. She meets people, and the Darcys invite her to Pemberley, so that's great too, instead of having to go back to Longbourn where nothing's happening. And this, well, this is, I wonder why they didn't do it the year before. Maybe it wasn't quite the right timing. After all, Lizzie and Darcy would have been on their honeymoon for a while. That could very well be it. Anyway, this is the first major ball, etc. at Pemberley since the late Mrs. Darcy, Mr. Darcy's mother. And so Lizzie's all busy preparing for it, and Kitty's doing what she can to help. And guess who shows up? Lydia. And, well, let's just say events happen that send Kitty home to Longbourn in disgrace. So, what is Kitty going to do next? I'm glad that Kitty gets her due in this book, because that really is an excellent question. We are not told why, although this book gives a reasonable explanation as to why, although Lydia is the youngest of the Bennet sisters. Between her and Kitty, at least, Lydia was the dominant one. But that really does bring up the question. Once Lydia is married, and especially after Jane and Elizabeth aren't really around at Longbourn either, what in the world is Kitty going to do with herself? And I'm glad we have an answer to that in this book. Anyway, that was my Jane Austen July and the rest of what I read in July. I also managed to watch the 1995 Persuasion? I have some thoughts on it, and it had been a while since I watched it, so it's good that I rewatched it. This is probably my third time, and that is, there are a couple of amusing scenes, of course, very well done, love the acting. Have to watch the 2007 one or 2008 one to compare, but this is probably my favorite Captain Wentworth. Not quite sure about Anne. It's sad that she spends so much of the movie sad, but that's the story. But the gal who did and also did a wonderful job. You can tell it's of its time, although that's not a bad thing. It's also slower than I remember, which in a way makes sense. It's very internal, but I love it, but I wouldn't be able to watch it all the time. And I'm not sure I can say it's my favorite of the Austen adaptations, but that's okay. It's still very worth watching, I would say. As for watching an adaptation of Austen, I did that. I kind of cheated and did that before this month, but that was because I knew this July was going to be complicated with a week in the middle for a family reunion. So I watched Mansfield with Love back in June, and I greatly enjoyed it. I'd have to agree that's the best Mansfield Park adaptation to date. Love how they updated most aspects of it. Love how the format of Fanny just making videos to tell her brother in the Navy about her life gives her the opportunity to say what she really thinks. And we also have plenty of opportunity to see what she's like around other people of various types. The one thing I will say is there are several parts that were quite intense, which I must confess made me uncomfortable, but that's just me. I'm very conflict adverse, so glad I saw it, and yeah, probably the best Mansfield Park adaptation there is currently. Someday they need to do another one. Yes, they do. One that does justice to the book, which means probably a mini series or something like that. And how they'd get around the problem of all of Fanny's internal thoughts and feelings, I'm not quite sure. Since if they were to do it as a period piece, as it is from today's perspective, I don't know how they would do that, but I believe it can be done, and someday someone will do it. Anyway, that is my July. I would love to hear if you participated in Jane Austen July, and if so, what you read, or if not, what you enjoyed reading in July, whether for Jane Austen or not. Feel free to leave comments, suggestions, and until next time, I hope we all stay safe and healthy, and as always, happy reading!